Hey,
Hi. Hi.
you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, excellent.
A little caught off guard.
Um,
Even though you asked me if I was ready and I said yes.
Yeah.
And then you pushed go and I was still caught off guard.
yeah, well, it's weird because it's just sitting here silent, and then suddenly you're sitting here with the entire internet, and it's still silent.
It is kind of still silent.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're here for round 2 of I don't know how many we'll do. We'll miss a week here eventually when we're on travel, but maybe we'll take all this with us when we travel here in
I
April.
don't think so.
We'll do a live stream from the steps of the Moscone.
No.
Run around with like little lab mics
No.
like they do on Instagram. Be like, "Excuse me, sir, do you want to talk about security?"
No.
No.
I
All
don't
right.
think so. I don't think so.
Could be fun.
Let's go with no.
Okay. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about some UI UX stuff, which is near and dear to our heart.
Super fun.
Super fun, I think so. But first, we want to go through, as we've been doing some current events. This is kind of an interesting current event, and a little bit in the strike zone of UI and UX. So we're going to kind of start in and lead the witness, if you will. Also, we have a bot running today, and we'll see how well we will the bot works. So Taryn's working bot administration today, so we're going to see if this goes well. I feel like I feel old, I think, whenever
You know what?
what
You have no room to talk about feeling old. What did I get yesterday?
you got your shingles vaccine.
My second shingles
shingles
vaccine. So let's not talk about feeling old.
Or healthy.
Or healthy. Yeah, I'm not feeling great.
Yeah, Heidi was definitely a little under the weather. Still just powering through on Advil right now, I think. So
Most definitely am. It's been worse than the first one for sure.
yes,
But still better than getting shingles, so I'm here for it.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly better than getting shingles. And the user experience of a shot is actually fairly consistent. It's pointy end toward enemy, and that's it. So that's not one that we're going to work on refining today. Although I wouldn't mind the Star Trek, like just random device. Well, they have the ones now that are like the pads with all the little needles.
Well, I mean, they do kind of have those.
Yeah.
They're just not like those hypo sprays or whatever they
Yeah.
call them. And, it's not quite the same delivery mechanism.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of needles, actually. So if it's just a field of little needles, I could probably deal with it better than like the big jabby jab needles, I think. So
Yes. Bruce leaves the room when our dogs get shots, actually.
I try to leave the room when I get a shot. It just
This is true.
doesn't work
This
out.
is true. They make them lay down. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. I'm pretty needle phobic. So anyway, as
Well, it's shots. I mean, getting your blood drawn is worse. That's actually what it is.
Yeah, 'cause
Shots you actually do okay with.
shots are okay when they put the garden hose in and just extract, liters of blood. I'm not.
Yeah,
okay
I mean,
with it.
just to clarify, you actually do okay when you get like a shot.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I just want to make fun of you for the right things. Actually, I shouldn't make fun of you for that at all. So sorry.
No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. I'll accept it.
Just spousal privilege. Sorry.
So
Anyway.
Taryn, who's been helping us on the marketing side and wrangling some of the social media stuff, I was talking to him this week about just the things we're working on this week and this live stream. And I'm like, "What'd you think of the live stream?" And he says, "Well, I just want to say that y'all got off topic like a lot, and I just want to make sure that that's what you intended to do," which I appreciated the feedback. I think it's what we intend to do.
I just, we can pretend to be something we're not.
Right. That seems a bad idea. So
Yeah.
instead, we're just going to go where the topics.
That being
take us.
said, stay on target.
Okay, we'll stay on target. So first, we want to talk a little bit about a scam that's been going around that you actually got hit with. You didn't weren't a victim of it, but you did get the message.
No, yes, I did. I did get, actually, I got a couple of them, right? And I was kind of like, yeah, super funny because, well, I don't go anywhere.
Right. So it was the unpaid parking and unpaid toll text scam that's been going around. I think a lot of folks have been getting that. Are you ready for me to?
It should still be there. It is.
There we go. Yeah. And so it's interesting because I haven't gotten the parking one but I have gotten the toll one probably a dozen
Yeah,
times the last
I've
month.
gotten the toll one, and I have gotten the parking one as well. I've gotten both. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what's interesting about both of those, and why I think they work, is both of these are actually pretty complex systems, right? Like they actually struggle from a UI
The bot's not
perspective.
happy.
Oh,
I like how aggressive it is. Sorry.
man,
Excuse me. While I
Nightbot's
laugh.
really putting on a show. Wants to take it. We can just turn it over. You could hook Nightbot up to like Chat GPT and just let it have a discussion. That's pretty glorious.
Oh, that's amusing.
Anyway, I think parking and tolls are generally poor user experiences, right? they're-
I mean, we tell the story all the time of our favorite parking ticket we got,
yes, yeah. We went.
as if we get many. We don't.
We don't.
But
We don't. But we went to go. We were in Central PA, and we were driving past Punxsutawney, so we decided to go visit Phil,
as one does.
as one does.
Yeah.
And so Phil, when he's not being hoisted by his body parts over the field at
By the overseers, the overlords. What are they called?
whatever
The
prognosticator.
No,
he's the
prognosticator.
Yeah, I don't actually can't remember what the weird dudes with the hats are called. But the critter lives in an enclosure like right on the main square.
The library. He lives at the
At
library.
the library in Punxsutawney. And so you can park.
Well,
and
he's on display at the library. I
Yeah.
assume he lives there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so you can walk up and see him, and sometimes he's there, and you can say hi to the critter. But they have I'll call very aggressive parking enforcement.
Well, especially right there because everybody stops to see. And you know, I believe Puxatawny is actually one of many.
Yes, there are multiple prognosticating critters around the country. It just Phil became, I think, excessively famous due to the movie.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, no. I mean, I think Phil is actually many.
oh, you mean
Right.
he's not 150 years old? Yeah.
And I don't even mean that. I mean, of all of the groundhogs we saw in there, I think they can lift any one of them up and they will be.
Oh, any of them can be Phil?
Verily, they will be Phil.
That's interesting.
This is what.
I hadn't thought about that. Jeez. Anyway, we stopped as a family to go see Phil.
And there wasn't really any clear demarcation or clear. I mean, there might have been some signs, but they weren't clear. Let's
Correct.
just start
Yeah.
with the fact that they weren't clear about what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so we thought, well, we're going to be out of the car for exactly 5 minutes. We'll just chance it.
Yeah. And so we got back, and 5 minutes later, there is a ticket on the windshield.
Right.
So what I have a lot of appreciation for the municipality or town or village of Punxsutawney is if you pay on the spot that day, there's like a little bin in the
like
building.
literally in the parking lot behind the
Yeah,
library.
right next to the library, and you can just go pay what you normally would have paid to park. It was like $250 or something like that. And if you just paid that, there was no extra fine. You could just put it in an envelope, walk away. Everything was cool. If you drove out of town and mailed it in, it was $20.
Yeah, but the sensation of like, oh my God, we were being watched the entire time was what got to us.
And there
Right.
was no one there.
I mean, because we
Like-
stood there, like we looked at the sign, we're like, it didn't make any sense what we were supposed to do. It still
Yeah.
didn't make any sense. It was actually easier just to go around the corner and drop it in the bin afterwards with the nice envelope that they provided us.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because even like I know we'll go shopping or something on the weekend in some town, and you'll pull up, and like the number of times that we try to pay for parking, and then it's like, oh, you don't have to pay, it's a Sunday, and you don't realize it because like the signs have like all these different things on it, and the
Or you have
little-
to walk all the way across the parking lot
Yeah.
to find the sign. Yeah. Anyway, but it doesn't really have anything to do with these
Well,
fishing texts.
No, but I think
but it is, yeah.
what I was trying to drive at was that, it wouldn't be surprising, like if I got a text for a place I had been and they said, hey, you have unpaid parking, because I'd be like, oh, I guess I parked in a place and I didn't do it right. And the same with tolls. Like I just went down to Virginia for a
Gift
breakfast meeting
cards,
this
always
morning.
always gift cards. Bruce doesn't do Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't do Bitcoin. It's always just straight up gift cards. I went to Virginia this morning, and the toll road is now all electronic tolling,
yeah.
and there's no more toll barriers or anything. And if you're not used to being on electronic toll road, you just you go under a sign that says,
Well, so-
"We'll bill you."
Right. So related, I also got renew your Easy Pass scam.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I was like, well, that's funny because there isn't one in my name,
Yeah.
but thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So,
So, I mean, these are systems that you only periodically interact with. They all have different interfaces depending on like what state you're in or what town you're in or whatever. And so it's not beyond like for a consumer, for the receiver of the scam, beyond the realm of possibility to be like, oh, I guess I screwed that up when I drove to this place or I parked here or whatever. If you haven't been to the place that they're saying that you have a problem, you can clearly just be like, yeah, this is a scam. But if you have, like, it's not hard to think like, oh yeah, I guess I screwed up parking in downtown Bethesda, and now I got to pay this fee. So I think the scam succeeds partially because of crappy UI for the consumers of parking and
right.
tolls.
And Kyle brings up a good point.
Yeah, yeah, and if like if you don't pay, like, right, because this preys on the fear of like, oh, and if you don't pay, we'll suspend your registration. Whatever, people are like, oh shit, I don't want to deal with that, and so they'll go to some random website. Or my favorite is when the link doesn't work and they're like, you have to like add us to your contact list so that the links will work. And like, well, that's
Oh, I hate that. That's the worst. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a way for me not to want to do business with you.
well, most of
in
the
all
time it's a scam
reality.
anyway.
Yeah.
But
Well, it should be. I mean, that should be a marker.
yeah,
Absolutely. But there are a handful of times it hasn't been.
Yeah.
And then I just choose to go elsewhere. Right?
right. So
So
So anyway, if you get a text or a text for unpaid tolls or parking, it's very likely a scam. Please don't fall for it. You can just send me the gift card instead, and I'm happy to accept it. Usually $1,000 Best Buy gift cards work best for me.
Really, Best Buy?
I don't know. I figure that's the one no one pays attention to fraud because no one shops at Best Buy anymore. So
Okay. Not that we're throwing shade or anything. Holy cow.
sorry.
All right, are we moving on?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
move on. So
Well, this is the other one we
yeah,
were talking
yeah.
about, so very related. This one was it was pretty funny because I actually got this one yesterday, day before,
yeah,
and I showed it to you not because I thought it was necessarily real, but I was kind of like, why am I getting this?
yeah. Well, because
Well, I'm not a great target for it.
No. Jason Blanchard posted a thing today actually that said that he got one that was in like a group text where the attacker had sent like to a group at once, and so I don't know if they're trying to conserve on SMS prices.
Jeez,
like,
are you
cost.
kidding me?
Yeah.
So
Like, just bundle up a bunch of like one of you
Whoa.
people will pay. Here's 10 people. So yeah, I thought that was pretty amusing. But,
Well, it's actually, as you and I both know, though, it's not, those services are not necessarily even all that cheap, right? I mean, if they're only doing it once or twice, you could do that on cheap. But if you're relying
yeah,
on
you're
those
doing it in bulk.
services,
Yeah, sending text messages is exotically expensive, all things being equal. And I think it's mostly because you're paying probably 90% of the cost is due to like them having to do anti-fraud.
Yeah.
Twilio et al. Have to do a lot of work to keep fraud down and not get kicked off the telco networks. And I think that a lot of them, it's not the like actual price of the bits on the wire, it's the operations around like running a secure texting universe. It's tough. It's tough. All right. Are we ready for our random?
Well, we are. So
fact of the day?
So we are today, actually, sort of. Jason, we're drawing inspiration from well, I'd say loosely from different kinds of like transit maps, we're drawing loosely inspiration from transit and things adjacent to that, but also other kinds of maps. And one of those is our ski maps, right? So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But related to that, our family went skiing this last weekend. And I went skiing for the first time in, what did we figure? It was about 30 years. I put skis on for about the first time in.
More than 30, you wouldn't give a precise number.
Well, it's because I didn't know the precise number, but it has been a very long time.
Long time.
I was in high school, I believe, at some point. And suffice it to say that I set no world records coming down that mountain, right?
Mm-hmm.
At all. I think my son lapped me 4 or 5 times coming down the mountain. But my question for you, my random fact of the day, is do you happen to know what the current world skiing record is for speed?
For speed.
Yes.
So I know, like, first of all, for any of those kind of things, you're overcoming the friction of the snow, but then the friction in the air becomes the limiting factor.
Oh, yeah. They're wearing like the bare minimum of
Yeah,
clothing, right?
yeah, and I've seen some of the stuff where they've got like wings on the back of their calves and stuff to
Yeah,
control the
this is
airflow.
speed skiing, to be
Speed skiing,
clear.
yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
isn't like, average Joe on the mountain coming down the hill, right?
Yeah,
This is speed
and
skiing.
I know like when I was doing downhill training and we would clock, I would hit like 60 to 65 kind of on the regular, and I
It's
know that
terrifying.
it. Yeah, I was
Terrifying.
young and my whole bones are made of rubber, I guess. And so I know downhill racers will hit on the order of 70, 80, 90 miles an hour. So I would guess that for speed skiing, we're upping that by, let's say, 50%. So I'll say 140 miles an hour.
Well, you're super close. It's actually like 158 point, I think it was like 7 or 8 or something like that. So just under 160 miles per hour.
Wow.
It's the current world record for
That's pretty
speed
quick.
skiing. Yeah, it's faster than I ever want to go standing on 2 sticks.
Yeah. I'll say like the times that we did speed trap training where we're practicing like talking being as aerodynamic as we can, 60, 65 miles an hour was attention getting.
Right.
Like
So
it was
I largely
definitely
did
attention
everything
getting.
I could to not be aerodynamic, best
yeah.
I can tell.
Yeah, you were in the
It
like
was
2 to 3 mile an hour range this weekend. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's just I cannot. I was in the 2 to 3 mile per hour range. I mean, the second run I was faster.
You were
than-
faster than that, yeah. Yeah, you were definitely
I
faster than that.
definitely got down the hill faster than if I had walked down the hill.
Yes. That's fair. That's fair. Although you would have walked straight down versus skiing and you went around back and forth. So
Listen,
I'm
now I don't
not
believe
throwing shade.
anything you said to me about the whole entire
You
time.
did really well. Good grief. Whew.
I did great.
You did great.
I did
You did
great.
very well. You
I
very
did so
well.
great.
You only fell getting off the chairlift. You didn't
Shh.
kept the skis down for the rest
I
of it.
didn't stop the chairlift.
You did not.
That's the thing I didn't want to do, and I didn't do
Yeah, when
that.
you fell getting off the chair, you were very serious about falling forward in a way. You were like, I'm going that way and I'm going to.
Listen, I know things sometimes.
Yeah.
And I knew that I didn't want to stop the chairlift. Of all the things, that's the one thing I didn't want to do. All right.
All right. On to the topic of the day.
Yeah. Which is, I guess we'll just lead in with what we were talking about, kind of skiing and the inspiration we drew from that genre.
When we started the company, you do a lot of things early days that you kind of get to do once and you want to do them right. And one of those things was like figuring out our brand and messaging and what we felt was important as a company and that kind of thing. And Mike Evans, who was the CMO at Expel and started the same day I did when I was there, is actually one of our external marketing advisors on our marketing advisory board. And Mike walked us through an exercise and kind of, the goal of the exercise is to help understand the brand and who we were and that kind of thing. And it was questions of like, if you could be an animal, what animal would you be, and things like that. So it was
Not us personally,
no,
and it wasn't quite like that, but it
wasn't quite like
was
that.
actually kind of like that.
yeah. And so there were some squishy, touchy feely things, and I'd say different people in the company had different responses. Kyle was adamant. Well, I could never be an animal. Okay, thanks, Kyle. So not to call him out, but he was very mechanical of like, well, clearly I'm not an animal, so I can't answer this question. We're like, oh, good. That's very non-robotic of you. Love you, man.
Robots not an animal.
Yeah, robots aren't animals. So, but one of the ideas that we ended up leaning into through this branding exercise was like this concept of like making complex systems seem simple, right? And so what in the world around us helps make complex systems simple, since that's what we want to do as a company. What can we draw upon? What kind of visual references can we draw upon? Metaphorical references can we draw upon? And so one of the first things we looked at were
Give me 1 second.
transit maps.
It's reloading. There we go.
Okay, which you'll see, even behind us on our thing is, and on our main website is very reminiscent of a transit map. And there's a fascinating history of transit maps. There's different websites that are out there. This is actually, I think, the Portland Rail system. And they just have like a great page on the history of transit maps and the kind of evolution of helping people, use mass transit. And even in like the modern era where everyone has a phone and everything, I'm always struck when someone comes to a city and has to use the transit system for the first time, how hard or easy it is for them to understand how to get to where they're going. And a big part of that is in, you know, how the data is represented. Like, how do you represent the breadth of a complex system like the transit maps in DC or in this case, you know, the early Denver ones. But I think there's an interesting example on this page for, oh yeah, so this is a London Underground map from, does it give a date?
Oh, it probably did. No, maybe 1908.
1908.
Yeah,
So gold star on the Technicolor for 1908. Like that's
it's probably, you know, been enhanced or
yeah,
something.
enhanced.
What do they call that when they go back and put colors back on it later?
Oh yeah. Actually, colorized.
Yeah,
Colorized.
let's go with that.
So I think one of the things you'll notice is that the underlying structure of this map is just the map of London, right? And then they just painted the lines.
That makes sense
where it
because
goes.
it's a map of the London Underground.
Right, but I mean, have you seen a
It'd be weird if it was Texas. Is
but
all
no,
I'm
it would,
saying.
jeez. But I mean, it's like the actual map, right? You can see the Thames and all that, and like if you look at a London Underground map today, that's not at all what it looks
Oh,
like.
right. It looks perhaps a little bit more like the thing you see on the right here.
Yeah, so here's an example of you know, the greater New York City area with all the boroughs, and then a map of the transit system, which is represented in a far more abstract way, right? Like there's really only a few angles, right? There's north, south, east, west, and then there's some 45-degree angles.
But it's clean. It shows you the different lines. It shows you where the stops are. It shows you where the transfers are, right? And it's, I mean, I know that when I first started going to the city, I avoided using the subway like crazy because it terrified me. And then I did it the first time and I was kind of, I mean, it's not still my maybe favorite way to travel around the city, but became much easier once I was like, yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, it becomes much easier to understand. We actually have, what's the name of the company, Bruce, who does, we have the circuit board representation of this.
Oh yeah. Shoot.
Anyway, and it lights up and it actually corresponds with where the trains are in the city.
For all the subway lines.
For all the subway lines. It's pretty cool. They make them for a bunch of cities in and around the world. They have one for London. They have one for New York. They might actually have, I think they have one for Toronto. I think they have one for Chicago. Chicago's a big circle. It's kind of weird, but it's pretty cool. And then that same company does it for the weather as well. So you can watch the weather moving across the country.
Right.
You know, in little light up dots.
Yeah.
But
and I mean, and what I mean, one of the things I like about this is like if you look at a map of New York, Manhattan is an island that tilts off to the northeast a little bit, right?
Train tracker. Thanks.
Yeah. Train tracker. Yeah. But if you you know, are on the ground, you really don't care that Manhattan is 20 degrees off axis, right? Like you really care. You're going uptown, you're going downtown. Do you need to go to one of the other boroughs or whatever? And so even just orienting the map, turning it, you know, a few degrees so that the lines are all up and down and left and right help a lot when you're on the ground. I do think New York, and this is a criticism a lot of people levy, could benefit from a clarity of naming because the AC 1, 2, F, you know, they got different colors. Some are letters, some are numbers. At least in DC, we just have colors.
We just have colors. Toronto's a really easy town to get around on, and they use a train and bus system that you can transfer between and do it very easily.
Very easily, yeah.
And I don't remember the nomenclature they use there, really, but it is something different for the buses and something different for the trains.
Yeah,
so
it
it's
clearly
easy to
delineates
follow.
between the two. Yeah. And I think that the success of some of these systems or lack thereof is, you know, rides on the back of like somebody being able to walk in, look at a map and understand like, okay, I'm trying to get over to here, you know, and making it simple. And so if you look at you know, modern transit maps, I think they're one of the most primary constant examples of like taking a complex system and making it you know, as simple as reasonably possible. Some municipalities fail at it, but most kind of have gotten it right. Also, Staten Island is just a line, right? There is just one line through Staten Island. It's been like that for decades, and it's the easiest like visual representation of any.
I didn't even actually. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize there was a.
Everyone forgets about Staten Island.
Well, I didn't forget about Staten Island.
I know people that lived in the city for like their whole life, and they're like, I've never been to Staten Island. Or if they did, like, I went to a house party when I was in high school once. Like, no one goes to Staten Island unless you live there. So there's, I was going to say some very derogatory things about Staten Island. We should just move on. So
Okay, I feel like maybe we presented these a tiny bit out of order. We probably should have started with this since we were talking about skiing.
well, for next time, we'll do it the other way.
Next time we'll do it the other way. Oops, we didn't rehearse.
So you went skiing for the first time in forever.
I did. Are we backing up?
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing the Scooby-Doo thing. We've backed up.
Crap.
Shade in the comments now.
Throwing shade.
It's all right. He can handle it.
Coworker's spouse being from Staten Island. I didn't actually say anything bad about Staten Island.
But you thought about it.
I was on the verge of saying something bad about Staten Island. I think we can just ask ChatGPT to say bad things on our behalf about Staten
Let's
Island.
not.
Okay.
Let's not. I'm sure there's many great things about
Just
Staten
in case
Island.
the
Like
borough,
it starts with an S. S is a great letter.
the
of the
borough of
alphabet.
Staten Island ever wants to become a customer. Oh, and I'm wearing an MTA T-shirt. If you're
Well,
wondering
here,
why I'm
Brianna.
wearing this random swimming thing.
Oh, here. Well, I don't think I should focus on you
Yeah,
because
but
that'll get too tight, right?
It'll get weird, but this is actually an officially licensed MTA shirt and instructs you on how to get to pools around New York in, I guess, the 70s. I don't even think most of these pools exist, but we felt like since it was actually a MTA licensed product, it would be. Are you trying to read the shirt?
No, I'm just noticing that in true Bruce style, there's a random white dot on the upper
Yeah.
left-hand side.
Yeah,
yeah.
there is. There's a. Oh, here. Where is it? Over here.
No, the other
Damn it! I'm
side.
looking at myself.
Your finger's over it.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
dot. It's not like it's literally just screen printed on, which is kind of my existence, is just have shirts with weird extra screen printing bits. So
Anyway, all right, back to this.
yeah.
So, but this particular hill is
This is Holiday Valley in Ellicottville, New York, which is
I have never skied here.
yeah, you never skied here. This is where I grew up skiing in a place called Wing Hollow, which doesn't exist anymore. And when Wing shut down, we had to drive 20 minutes away and go to Holiday Valley. And so this picture was drawn by a guy named James Nehus, I think is how you pronounce his last name. And James has been drawing and doing ski maps for literally a couple generations now. The guy's
Pretty much, if you see a ski map,
it's either James or like someone has riffed hard off of James's work. And I think to me, what's interesting about these ski maps is like this is a big 3-dimensional space, right? Like the chairlift that runs kind of from the lower left to the center, up the big line that runs up the
this one.
yeah, that one. So that's Mardi Gras, and that's a long.
Does every
trail.
ski area have a hill named Mardi Gras? Because
oh.
the one I grew up at did. Oh, and we also had another ski area in common that had 2 hills with the same name.
Well, so the one run off to the left is called Cindy's Run.
With this one here? No, it's down here.
That one there,
Yeah.
That was called Cindy's Run, and the ski area in Fairbanks had a Cindy's Run as well because the woman, Cindy, I want to say Fitzgerald, but that's not the right name.
I don't remember.
Fitzpatrick. Grew up in Ellicottville near me, and then went to school in Fairbanks, Alaska, and then unfortunately passed away up there. And so Holiday Valley and the ski area in Fairbanks both have a Cindy's Run named after her, which is weird when I found out when I went and skied in Fairbanks and was like, why is there a Cindy's Run here? It was actually,
Well, you knew her family.
I knew the family.
Yeah.
I never met her. Anyway, the what's interesting about this is like this is a really complex geography, right? There's actually like 2 huge kind of valleys and then 2 separate ridge lines, and there's slopes going everywhere. And if you stand at the bottom of any of these hills, you can't really see anything else that's going on. And so this whole area is like 2 miles wide. It's a 800-foot vertical hill, and it's spread out all over the place. And James has an eye, like he's talked about his process, but he pre-satellite imagery. He would get up in a plane, take a bunch of pictures of it, and then start to sketch it out. And how do you smush down into 2 dimensions this really complex 3-dimensional world so that people can use it? Because technically, like if you just were in a plane looking at this angle, whole parts of this would be hidden from you, right? The stuff to the left of the Mardi Gras chair is actually down in the valley, that if you were in an airplane and could see the frontage here, you wouldn't even see what's on the backside. So he has to find a way to like bring this forward and make a two-dimensional representation that your brain doesn't like vapor lock and be like, well, that's not really what it looks like. And I think he's done, just an amazing job at bringing these ski areas to life.
I think he has too. It's interesting to me that there's Alyeska, and then this is actually the ski area that was in Juneau where I grew up. I guess I click here. Much smaller, right? A little harder to represent in a lot of ways, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Spread out all over the place. I mean, the chairlifts on the left is also like wrapped around the corner.
Well, and it may be a little hard to see, but this run, I mean, these runs are long.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Alaska has real mountains. So let's just start there.
Ouch.
Yeah.
A lot of shade.
And to be clear, the first time I went skiing 30 years ago, I skied this and I skied this. And that was about it.
Yeah.
So, but it's crazy. It's I think it's pretty cool. I did have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If we go back and look at the Holiday Valley map, there was a lake up at the top.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to know, this is us going off topic again, but these are the kinds of questions I like to ask. I can't do it, Bruce. I assume, I mean, knowing what I know now, they're probably using a lot of that water, some of that water for at least snowmaking on that side of the mountain. Yes or no? It's Big Lake, so I don't know, but I would assume.
It's not. I mean, we were just at Seven Springs, and they had the same situation where they had a body of water at the top, and that tends to be
There's also another one here.
Yeah, that feed down, and just gravity feeds water to the snowmaking. So they have a couple of holding ponds down at the bottom, but the one on top, I believe, is man-made. And
this one for sure is probably man-made. I didn't know that one was pretty big, so I wanted to ask.
Yeah, in Western New York, there aren't a lot of ponds at the top of hills, and so I think that's got to be man-made and feeds, because I mean the snowmaking equipment way outpaces any local active water like a river or creek that they could pull from. So they may be pumping up into that and then pulling down when they need to make snow, but it's definitely a snowmaking thing. So because obviously without snowmaking in that part of the world, you'd have whole seasons where you basically wouldn't ski. So anyway, you can see more ski maps and investigate more places that you might want to ski at skimap.org, which is a great resource. And so here's where we were this weekend, Seven Springs. If anyone's been to Seven Springs before, I mean, obviously you recognize the space, but Seven Springs, kind of like Holiday Valley, is super wide. Like it's like a mile and change, mile and a half, 2 miles wide. And the right-hand side of this map, they call it the North Face. And it literally is like completely wrapped around the mountain, right? Like if you were to look like an aerial photo of this, in no way, shape, or form is this like a direct representation of what you would see from the air.
When you're standing down here, like at the ski lodge, you don't see any of this.
Yeah, it's completely wrapped around the corner.
It's around the corner.
And I will say, like, when you're at the top, you look at this map, you think, oh, I could get around. And then you get down there and you're like on the slopes and you're trying to figure it out. It gets pretty tough on a new mountain to figure out where to go. And I've been at mountains where I thought for like the whole day I was on one trail, and eventually I looked at the map and realized I was on a completely different trail, right?
Well, and I was going to say, yes, I would say that they actually do a fairly good job up at the top of the mountain. But once you're on the trails, it starts to fall apart a little bit as to what's what. Because especially there's all these switchbacks and stuff in here. You can see where all the trails interconnect. And well, to be fair, I wasn't looking up a whole lot. But and I only went down, I don't even know. I went down, this green line kind of in here.
Yep.
So, but I had to cut across this hill at some point, but there wasn't there was a big stop sign, but it didn't say, this is,
here's what this hill is,
or here's what you're doing. And there are times when that could be really important, right? So they failed a little bit at the signage, like once you were on the hill, but they were pretty good at the safety signage.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. But understanding what slope you were on and stuff was actually, once you got going, a little complicated. And so to that end, we've got some examples of UIs that we've experienced that aren't quite as shiny examples and things we didn't want to emulate when it came to our brand. And so we've got a few of those we're going to bring up. So you'll notice I really have a hard time of going back and forth, but the graphics we use on our website are meant to be very reminiscent of transit systems and movement and that kind of thing. But one of the things we had to balance was we're not a transit company, right? And there was definitely some versions of the initial graphics package. They were like, if I looked at this, I would think we sold subway cars or transit software or something like that. So we had to make it a little more abstract.
Well, yeah, in particular, I kept pulling back,
Yeah.
let's pay homage, but not be the thing, right?
Yeah. All right, you ready?
I believe so.
All right.
So back at Seven Springs.
You can tell I took this photo because it's not centered or straight.
I was going to fix that. I did not.
Yeah. Seven Springs is a Vail property. So Vail, originally a ski area in Colorado, is now a corporation that owns 20 or 30 at least ski areas around the country. And as an aside, I will say that, skiing is an expensive sport. It's expensive to run the facilities. Vail's a little polarizing in their, they bought up a lot of smaller hills, and some people aren't a fan of Vail. Other people's are. My personal opinion is some of these places wouldn't survive if it wasn't for the cash influx and the organizational capability that Vail brings to the table.
That being said,
yeah, so Vail has a pass. They call it the Epic Pass, and the Epic Pass have different versions of it, and it works at different places all over the country. So we have the Northeast Value Pass, and we can ski all over the Northeast, blah, blah, blah. But then when you're at the facilities, some of the places, some of the restaurants, some of the clothing stores, whatever, will give you a discount if you have an Epic Pass. Some of them won't for various reasons, like it's alcohol or it's a brand name product or whatever. So they created this handy dandy poster to help you understand which places accepted Epic Pass to get a discount at.
And it's not, I mean, to be fair, it does communicate the information you need. It's not, it does all the things it needs to do. Like, let's start there. It absolutely does that.
Yes.
It just does it in kind of a strange way.
So the first time we saw this, it was for just for the bistro, which isn't even represented here. It is the 717 bistro or whatever. And I just saw 2 squares and an X in one of them.
Oh, when did you first see it?
Well,
Because I saw this sign and I told you.
I just saw it when you were downstairs next to the bistro. And I was like, what the hell is the 2 squares with 1 X in it? And you were like, oh, that indicates they don't take the Epic Pass. I was like, how the hell did you know that? And it's because Heidi had seen this sign.
Well, and I had to walk. So this sign it's up against a wall, and it's not in a real prominent place. And I had to, and if you can see that the little stones down there, it's like basically you come up the stairs, and then this is at the top of the stairs, but if this is the stairway, and so you come up the stairs, it's posted here up against a wall. So you come up the stairs, you have to walk around to look at it, right? It's odd.
Yeah.
But, whatever. So I had to come around. And then you'll see, too, that someone like me who actually doesn't possess the Epic Pass, I don't know what those 2 little mountains or the very, very, very tiny words there mean. So I had to go read those.
Yeah. And so, I mean, ultimately, they're trying to convey one bit of information. Do you take the Epic Pass or not? And they're choosing to represent it with more than 1 bit. So they've given themselves not just an X and a check, but then 2 different boxes, and the check only goes into one box and the X only goes in the other box. And they're mutually exclusive, right? Because you're literally conveying a yes or no, not yes, no, maybe. This isn't 4 bits of information, which is what you could convey with this whole setup, but instead it's 2 bits. And so somebody decided they'll put 2 boxes, and the check will go in the left and the X will go in the right, and that will be the crystal clear way that you can understand this. And so on this slide, or this poster, you kind of get it when it stands alone by itself and you just see an X in a box on the right.
Well, I don't even know that you kind of get it on this sign. I mean, I literally had to walk all the way up to it and read what those words meant, right? Now, again, familiarity might help. I also agree with the comment that the arrows are confusing. What they mean is that basically everything on this sign, except for the bistro, is to the left,
Yeah.
right? The bistro is down the stairs to the right, but that's still not entirely clear. And I don't actually understand why this sign also needed to be a directional sign. It
Right.
did not need to be that.
No.
But anyway, I will say, just because we're throwing a little bit of like, hey, you could use a better graphic designer. Our experience there was actually pretty great, and everybody was really nice to us. But
it's things like this that I think call into relief, like it.
it adds to the lack of atmosphere, I suppose.
Yeah. And doing this right requires like some thought and some understanding of what you're doing. Because I believe that whoever designed this, like, is obviously trying to do the right thing, but they're not really thinking through like, how is this interpreted? Why am I doing this? And so this is kind of like the premise of user experience is how does a user going to internalize and interact with this product that you've made? And here it's like, it's super confusing. Also, they could benefit from some alignment and just general putting things on a grid kind of feel. This feels like something I would have built, and then I would have brought to you and be like, "Is any of this aligned?" And like, no. Yeah. That's how I do ShmooCon graphics. Is I'll bring an idea, and the first question is, none of this stuff is centered up. Okay, all right.
You've gotten better, and it's not like we're complete experts at that either, right?
No.
But we, over the years have at least developed a quicker eye for a lot of this stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Also, I've learned to ask the question of what do you want it centered against, because that is not always.
God forbid you hang art on our walls.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I will.
Although I've pretty much given up on that in this house.
Yeah. I was actually terrified. There years ago, we were getting a split air conditioning system installed, and Heidi wasn't at the house. And the installer asked where where we wanted the indoor unit, the thing that actually moved the air. And I was like, over the window.
They were both wrong. By the way.
And I was just like, oh God, it needs to be centered somehow. And so I ended up taking the best guess that I could. And then Heidi got home, and she looks like, well, that's not centered. I was like, shit.
That's fine.
I haven't had to call the contractor back.
It was in the bedroom, so it was fine.
Yeah, okay.
It was fine. You did call me about the one in the main room.
Yeah, the one that was actually in the living room, I was like, okay, FaceTime, like we got to get this right, because otherwise I was going to totally screw it up. So, all right, what's our next example?
Our next example is, I'm not going to name this company, but this is it's a way to make a reservation for
a co-working space.
And it's very confusing. So you log in, there's a home screen, and then you click on the button that says book. That's clear enough, right? When you click on that screen, you get this first screen on the left. And what it brings up is basically the last place you were at. And that's fair. I mean, it kind of assumes maybe you're in the neighborhood, you want to go back to the same place you were. But that is in fact not what I wanted to do. So I am looking at this and I'm like, well, how do I look for a new location? So I initially the first thing I clicked was I looked at the buttons at the bottom because that's where I looked first. And directory, oddly enough, is a directory of people.
Yes.
That I don't know.
Directory, it's just names. Names of people that work there.
I don't even think it's people that work there. I think it's people who use their services and have agreed.
Oh,
like it's a community of people.
Oh, interesting.
So, but it's got a person on it, so maybe I shouldn't have clicked there, but I still found it very odd. Like, why would I want that? But thank you. So then, and I was a little misled because there is a locations, the locations icon is at the top, but it says home right next to it. So I wasn't led to that initially, right? But I got there maybe in the next, like less than a minute.
Yeah.
And I clicked on locations, the locations icon. And then it pulls up this screen on the right. And I did, I blacked it all out just again, because I'm not really trying to throw shade on this company that I still want to do business with. So, and then here I got further frustrated because it then produced this list that A, wasn't alphabetical by location. A, I couldn't search against this, and B, I couldn't search against this list. I just had to scroll through it. So
it's also not done by distance.
Oh, well, they don't know where I am either.
No,
so
but
there's
they've
that,
got
right?
Arlington, Indiana, California, and then Alexandria, all jumbled together.
So at that point, I just started taking screenshots and saying a lot of
Yeah.
words because this kind of stuff drives me a little crazy.
My gut is this is the way that the database behind it, the order in which
Well,
it presents it. When you query the database and says, show me all locations, it says, here you go. And you get it in the order that the database has.
well, and having actually kind of gone down that road a little bit internally at Turngate lately, I get that. It's also wrong.
No, totally. Again, how is the user experience and internalize this? They're like, what? I mean,
Right.
makes no sense.
So we're gonna have another example of that in just a second. But what was interesting is once I saw this, I was like, okay, fine. It's just the mobile app. It sucks. I'm gonna go to the website. I did not take pictures of that, but let me tell you, the website was just as bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wonder if like, oh, they developed this app and they just kind of half-assed it. Maybe the website's better. No, the website was also crappy.
Yeah, it was very confusing as to what I was booking for how long I was booking it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and we ended up
It was just easier to call.
having a conversation about that where, different products, if there's a bad user design on the front of it, will drive you away from the product. In this case, like if you want to rent this co-working space, you have no choice but to deal with this, right? Like you either
or you call and
call.
calling is actually a very good experience.
Sure, yeah, because I guess people still use a phone once in a while.
Yeah, it's not my preferred method.
No, but because like you're not going to abandon this location because of a bad user experience. There are other products out there, and we were talking about like task management software like Asana, Monday.com. We use Linear internally. That's a product that you will abandon if the user experience is poor, right? Because there's really not much else to it. There's no secret resource behind the scenes. It's trying to make you more productive. And if the UI and the overall experience is working against that, you'll move away from it. But if you're trying to rent or get a hotel room off the interstate somewhere and you get a good deal at Marriott, you'll push through Marriott's weird UI to do it because you want that room. And I throw Marriott under the bus there because we do, Heidi and I both travel and use our iPads as our primary computing device most of the time. And the Marriott, for some reason, when you come in on an iPad, just treats it like a really wide iPhone. And the experience is just poor.
And sometimes it's hard to find the, convert to desktop experience, button, right?
It's not,
so
if you're
gonna force people in those choices, let them opt out, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're gonna have another example of how bad choices lead to really confusing experiences, right? So here's one. I had purchased a timer for like a light bulb, and was setting it up, and then I went to go check the schedule I had put into this system, right? And yeah, I know I probably shared when all my lights are going on and off with, some foreign country at this point, but I needed a quick solution. And so this is where we were, right? And I pulled up the schedule and I looked at this and I was like, I don't understand what's happening. This doesn't make any sense to me. So for every day of the week, I had an on time and an off time that I put in for this bulb. And what it gave me instead was it ordered these in terms of the time selected, not by the day and not by on and off, which are arguably the two things it should have sorted against first. It's sorted by the actual time itself.
Yes. Yeah. The time of day, regardless of day or the state that the thing was transitioning into.
Yeah. And it made it really hard for me to check that I had actually selected an on and off for each particular time that I was going for.
Yeah.
So I actually had to hand you my phone and have you double check for me because I needed another set of eyes because it wasn't easy to do.
Yeah, and it's funny because this is one of those ones that like at first pass somebody was like, oh, it's sorted by time, and then it's clear they never use their own product. Right?
Yeah, because this would be like, well, that was wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like if as a developer, if you were to open your app and try to set some times, at some point your brain would be like, wait, none of this makes any sense to me, right? And you would sort it differently. But this is what you get for a cheap light bulb that we bought at the local hardware store with some random cloud service.
Listen, I needed a quick solution to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So eventually and soon this will be replaced, but it's working for us.
Yeah, working now.
Currently.
Yep.
All right. So I'm not too angry about this one, but it did stand out to me. We were buying new windshield wipers, and we were trying to find the correct ones. And I'm staring at the sheet, and my brain was not. It took me a minute for my brain to readjust to reading these dates. And can you see why?
Because the most recent date is the date on the left of any date range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and typically that's not how you would write this
No,
list, right?
no. If you were like, this Jeep was made from 2010 to 2017, you would write 2010 to 2017, and they've inverted that logic,
Right.
which is nuts. Like, this is one of those, like, I could not wrap my head around it. Like, I mean, we have a 2010 Wrangler, and I was like, I literally stared at this for like 30 seconds trying to figure out what the hell was going on.
Well, it's interesting. A friend of ours has their parent used to work at an auto supply store or whatever. And apparently these companies like used to send somebody out maybe yearly, maybe every other year, to actually give training on how to find their things and read these charts. Maybe not this one. This one's actually not that difficult. But the fact that they had to provide training on how to use their paper lookup systems is I think pretty telling.
Yeah, for sure. It's a weird representation, and it's not how you normally would consider the production run of a vehicle or anything, but somebody that we showed this to is like, oh, well, obviously it's because you're looking back, so one person we presented this to, it actually, this clicked. They were like, oh, it makes sense to me. And I thought that was interesting to have somebody who, for whatever frame of reference, is like, well, I'm just going to go backwards in time, and this works. But most people we show this to is like, yeah, this is totally wrong.
Right. And it's not, you figure it out, right? It's not, it doesn't stop you from purchasing the right, well, other things on this might stop you from purchasing the right windshield wiper. But, this isn't a showstopper. It's just complicated.
Yeah.
Unnecessarily complicated.
Yeah. Also, that they have Jensen Healy's listed, which I guess Jensen bought after Austin owned Healy.
Oh, I didn't even. Yeah,
it's a weird. I used to watch Austin Healy's race, and I didn't realize that Jensen had bought the Healy brand. So
apparently, a while ago.
Oh yeah, they're not new vehicles under any way, shape, or form. So
I whenever I hear Austin Healy, I think of Annie, because didn't Daddy Warbucks have one?
Oh, I don't know. That's what my dad used to mechanic for a guy that raced. One of their cars was an Austin Healy. So that's the only reason I even know. Weird little British sports car. So anyway.
Okay.
All right.
Moving right along.
Yeah.
So this was actually in a presentation that Bruce gave a little while ago, and he's given this internally to, this is a part of a larger presentation, but he gave it internally at Turngate as well. But this one's kind of funny.
Yeah. So we were big Mac people and been using OS X since OS X server was released in 99 or whatever. And I think that Apple in general has done the best of the three major operating system manufacturers to create kind of a consistent user experience, to make it clear what the user is supposed to do. Like there's in this particular case, this is the shutdown dialog. It's a very clear call to action. Like, is this what you intend to do? Here's some ramifications of the thing you're about to do. The big blue button is the default. If I hit enter, that's what's going to happen. The expectation is this is probably what you want to happen. So it's highlighted,
Yeah, the big blue button is the call to action, or the thing that you should be doing, or, they want you to do.
Very simple, right? Like this is just a common dialogue. And so then Apple goes and does this with Touch ID. And this drives me absolutely nuts. So the call to action here is now the fingerprint with the Chrome icon, right? Because this was Touch ID that was launched by Chrome because I was trying to unlock a password in Chrome. So it doesn't actually ask me to do anything. It does.
Your brain wants to use password, right?
Right.
So.
Yeah, like by default, it's like use password. And I'm like, okay, I guess it can't use my finger because it's not prompting me to touch the thing. And then you realize it is in the small print above where it says Touch ID or enter your password. So now they've made Touch ID a verb. It's not touch the whatever, you touch your finger to the keyboard or whatever the hell it is. It's Touch ID or enter your password, and
Listen, it's
it's
not as catchy as Google. I get
no,
it.
no, and it's in little font and it's down low. Like the real call to action in this case is meant to be this image of a fingerprint, but when you see use password as the highlighted thing with three ellipses, you're kind of like, or with
Oh, and
an
this
ellipsis.
caught me so much initially.
Yeah, I would hit enter and
Yeah.
be like, oh shit, now I have to enter my password because I didn't do Touch ID because I misunderstood the dialogue. It was a good quality year of like unlearning the just hit the thing to make the blue thing happen.
And even if you knew, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
still would fall into
No,
the
my
trap,
brain
right?
would just paper lock. I'd hit enter and be like, oh, damn it, every freaking time. So yeah, this is a really frustrating one that drove me insane. So
Anyway,
was that all the ones we had?
that's all the ones we had.
Well, there we go.
I didn't
So.
I didn't add any others. I guess we could go back and talk real quick about when we were at Seven Springs. One of the other things we did there is we went skiing. Of course, we went skiing. We went bowling.
As one does at a ski area.
Yeah, they have a bowling alley, and first of all, this guy who has not bowled since the last time we were at Seven Springs over a year ago. Actually, same weekend, so
Same
a year
weekend,
ago. In the third game, and I didn't bowl. I watched because I'm dealing with shoulder issues again. But in his third game, bowled 5 strikes in a row. So it was.
I'm going on
Anyway.
tour next week.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Amusing and funny, but sort of not the point. So these bowling scoring systems, they're hysterical, right? If you've been bowling recently, they always have all these crazy animations that pop up if you get a strike. You get a turkey, the turkey pops up, whatever. But it was super interesting to notice is that, as you're setting up your game, you usually go up and you type in your name, the name of everybody playing, right? And almost to a T, everybody who came in while we were there would type in the first name and then would stop because they didn't know how to advance to type in the second name.
Well, and what was really confusing was to start the whole process, you had to hit the check mark button, which is where the enter key was on the keypad that was in front of you. And so you did that, and then it prompted you to enter a name. And they would either stop or they would enter the first name, and then they would hit the check mark where the enter button was.
And then it would start the game.
It would start the game.
Yeah. And so then the guy would have to come over and back it out, whatever. And it just got to the point where after like listening to people ask this 3 times, I would watch people come in and they would get to that. And I would just do the down arrow, the universal symbol for like hit the down arrow.
There was a
key.
little thing on the screen that would say like down arrow for the next person. But there was also like when done, hit the check mark, and the check mark was where enter was. And people are used to like spreadsheet entering and stuff. So they type it in, hit enter, and oh, now my kids can't play because I didn't put their name up there.
And this was happening
every time.
every single family that came in. This was happening to. So it was clearly, and I didn't enter the name, so I didn't see it. But you told me you almost got caught up.
I caught it because potentially I'm sensitive to really crappy UI, and I was like, well, this is crappy UI, but I didn't think much of it. And then it happened to like literally everybody.
Literally everybody else who walked in after us. I mean, we just watched it because after you almost got caught by it, like that became my fun game was to see if anybody.
And it's the kind of thing like if one this product was sold by AMP, they're a huge bowling company manufacturer. They do all the back end systems and all kinds of things. And you're like, would anyone from AMP just watch for 10 minutes at an alley and see everybody make the same mistake? You could easily remedy this, right? But somehow this thing got built, got pushed out to production, and is deployed, and it is just a weird, awkward experience that required then intervention from the attendant every single time, right? It takes them away from other revenue generating activities.
Well, and this
whatever the
bowling
hell
alley
she's
is
doing.
small. He can answer the question and not move.
Yeah, there's like
right?
there's like 8 lanes, right?
But if it's a bigger bowling alley, I can't imagine that would be an okay experience. Now, to be fair, maybe it has been fixed and they haven't upgraded. Who knows? But
it was a old bowling alley, to be really clear.
Yeah, although looking at some of the screenshots I saw online, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's not a lot of capital investment happening in bowling alleys. That was my one takeaway. I found like an interface to a bowling alley that I might have inadvertently controlled, and it was somewhere in Eastern Europe today.
What? Stop.
And it was clear that this bowling alley in Eastern Europe had not seen an upgrade of their tech system in a long time.
All right. Well, we are coming up at 4:00. So before we go, any questions from the audience? And if not, do we want to do one funny one from ChatGPT?
Oh my gosh, I had not. Well, it's like 4:00 straight up. We've been yammering away. I can ask. I'm hoping someone else comes up with a question first, but mostly.
Kyle says.
AMF. Oh.
For the first time.
For the first time, I was going to say, I think they're still around, right? I will not ask ChatGPT. What's the best place to ski? Yeah, we didn't actually get that far off topic this week, I don't think. I felt like they, I thought we did okay. So I asked ChatGPT where the best place to ski in the Mid-Atlantic was.
What did it? Oh,
So-
in the Mid-Atlantic?
Yeah, it has a wide definition of Mid-Atlantic.
Well, yeah.
Snowshoe was best overall in West Virginia.
That's, wow.
Blue Knob as one of the more challenging ones in PA. Seven Springs.
Listen, this isn't a question for us to answer, though. You just asked the internet a question and got an answer.
Oh, yeah. I guess yeah, you're right. Well, I was curious.
That's good enough.
Yeah, it was 4:00, so I was getting confused. Also, I don't agree with ChatGPT on most of these, so that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really, it's actually, I would provide a nuanced view of why I think ChatGPT is wrong about its assessment of Mid-Atlantic ski areas, but we've plumb run out of time.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. All right.
Topic for another day.
Yep. We'll be back again next week with more shenanigans, and then it's going to start to be travel time. We'll be on the road more often than not in April, so we'll see how often we're able to.
Yeah, we may have to switch days. I believe our cat is joining us.
Yes. Yeah, the cat.
She even shut the door.
The cat opens and closes the door on the way in.
She's very polite.
We'll see if she's going to jump up here to be a guest star, but I think at this point she's just going to walk around. So
she'll make it up here in just a second, but not before we turn off the camera.
All right. Cool.
Bye,
Thanks, everybody.
everybody.
Take care.